Good afternoon, respected teachers. If you are opting English as language 1 in your paper 1 or paper 2, then there is one question which is always asked from either poetic device or figure of speech that is generally based on the poem. So you will be given 2 or 3 lines of the poem, and then you have to identify either the underlined part or identify the figure of speech or the poetic device. So this is one short fixed question asked in language 1 English, either in paper 1 or paper 2. So today we are going to cover most important poetic devices or figure of speech from the perspective of CTET. There are a lot of poetic devices, around 100. Out of those 100, we are going to cover around 15-16 poetic devices today that should be there in our question paper, and that is most frequently repeated in the previous year question paper that we are going to see today while practicing the previous year questions after doing the concept. So let's begin with the concept of poetic device. What poetic devices are? Poetic devices are the expression, the beauty of words, the way you write, the way you present in order to make yourself sound beautiful, in order to make yourself sound efficient, in order to make you sound good. That tool that you use either by arranging the word order, either by arranging the meaning, either by you making the word as a fun, either by inputting let's say multiple meanings into one word, jotting down word or shuffling it, or shuffling the sounds, or repeating the sounds. These are all the ways by which we make our words beautiful, or by which we make our sentence beautiful, or we sound beautiful. So poetic devices or figure of speech are generally used to beautify our speech or to beautify our written piece of writing. Are the poetic devices or figure of speech part of only the poems or the literature as well, or the stories as well? It's the part of all the written forms, made be poem, made be stories, made be speeches, your songs, your movies. Everywhere you'll find that in order to make your sentences better, in order to sound good, we generally use these poetic devices or figure of speech. We are going to see today metaphor, simile, alliteration, personification, imagery, onomatopoeia, irony, and oxymoron. These are the most repeated poetic devices or figure of speech asked in our questions. Let's see, let's try to understand it one by one. Okay, before we start with metaphor or simile or alliteration, let's understand one trick that will help us to identify the poetic device in our question paper. First and foremost thing that we are expected to do to identify the poetic device or the figure of speech is to look into the poetic line whether the word like or as is present in the poetic line or not. If the word like or as is present in your poetic line that is given in your question, the answer is simile. हमें क्या देखना है? हम देखेंगे कि हमारे पास जो पोएटिक लाइन दी गई है उसमें लाइक और एज है क्या. उस पोएटिक लाइन में अगर लाइक और एज वर्ड मुझे दिखता है और दो चीजों की क्वालिटी को कंपेयर किया गया है, इफ द क्वालिटीज बिटवीन द टू थिंग्स इज कंपेयर्ड बाय यूजिंग द कनेक्टर्स, बाय यूजिंग द वर्ड लाइक एंड एज, देन वी कैन से इट्स सिमिली. आई रिपीट, अगर दो चीज़ों की क्वालिटी को कंपेयर किया है और कंपेयर करने के लिए बीच में लाइक या एज वर्ड यूज किया गया है तो उस पोएटिक लाइन में सिमिली होता है फिगर ऑफ स्पीच या सिमिली होता है पोएटिक डिवाइस. फॉर एग्जांपल, द सेंटेंस इज फेस ashen like a corpse. Now when we say what we can see here is face is compared with corpse. चेहरा एक डेड बॉडी से कंपेयर किया गया एंड दैट कंपैरिजन इज डन बाय यूजिंग द वर्ड लाइक. So when we compare the qualities between the two things by using the word like or as, the answer is always simile. So in this line, face ashen like that of a corpse, this line is from the poem My Mother at 66, composed by Kamala Das, which is there in the syllabus of class 12. So face is compared with the dead body, and for comparing like or as is used, it's simile. Let's say that as and like is omitted, that like and as is not used, that like and as is missing, and even after that two things or qualities are compared. When the two things or qualities are compared, omitting the word like or as, neglecting or by not using the word like or as, the quality of one thing is imposed over the quality of the other thing, the answer is metaphor. So first thing we are going to say is whether there is comparison. If the answer is yes, whether in our sentence like or as is given. If like or as is given, simile. If it is comparison, let's say like or as, if it is compared without using like or as, the answer is metaphor. Now, if comparison is not there and we see there is some repetition of sound, repetition of word, repetition of initial vowels, repetition of consonant sounds. If there is repetition, we have to see whether the repetition is there at the beginning, whether the repetition is at the initial stage, if is the initial part of the word. If it is at the initial point, if it is at the beginning, the answer is alliteration. Now, if instead of repetition of initial sound, if instead of repetition of the beginning sound, the entire word is repeated, the entire phrase is repeated, then we have to see the position of the repetition. If the repetition is at the starting point, if the repetition is at the beginning, the entire word is repeated at the beginning, then we say that it's anaphora. And if the word is repeated not at the beginning but at any place at n number of times, then that will come in the category of repetition. I repeat, what is alliteration? Repetition of sound. Repetition of sound at the initial stage, that too the repetition of consonant sound. For example, suddenness and strangeness. In the word suddenness and strangeness, the first sound is sa and sa, or s or s. Now, if the sound is repeated at the initial stage at the beginning of the word, it's alliteration. Whereas in here we can say the word don't and don't is repeated. When the entire word is repeated, when the complete word is repeated, and that too at the beginning of the sentence, at the beginning of the poem, it's anaphora. Now here we say smile and smile and smile. Smile is repeated 3 times or thrice. This is repetition, which is one of the poetic device or figure of speech in itself. Let's start it understanding. We are going to understand it one by one. We'll start with simile. What is simile? If you see there is comparison of quality between 2 or more things, and for that comparison, like or as is used as connectors, like or as is used as comparison markers, then that comparison gives you the idea of that the figure of speech is simile. For example, her face is like the moon, which means her face has some quality which is similar to the quality of the moon. Maybe the brightness of the moon, maybe the shininess of the moon, maybe the scar of the moon, and her face has that same quality. So her face is looking like the moon. Her face is similar to the moon. When we see similarity of the qualities and we compare it by using the word like, it's always simile, simile and simile. Instead of like, we can use as to compare the 2 things or compare the 2 or more qualities. When we compare by using as, then there also the poetic device or figure of speech that is used is simile. For example, he is as brave as a lion. He is as brave as a lion. Now we see there is a comparison between the brevity of the lion and the person. Now that comparison is shown by using the word as, so it's simile. If her face shines like the sun, so her face shines in the way like the sun shines. Now that shyness is presented or compared by using the word like, it's simile. So when we see like or as and there are 2 things and the qualities of the 2 things are compared, it's always simile. Now metaphor, simply just omit that as or like. Omit that as or like, impose the quality of the one thing over the quality of the other thing. Let's say you mix it, we mingle it and make it one unit. There are 2 things and you have made it one unit by finding out the similarity, and you do compare, but that comparison is not based by using like or as. That quality is imposed over the another thing. Now 2 things are not there in the existence, that those 2 things or those 2 qualities intermingles in the way it becomes one unit. For example, she is like a rose. When we say she is like a rose, there are 2 things, she and rose, and the quality of she and rose is compared. Maybe the fragrance is compared, maybe the softness is compared. She has some quality that is there in the rose. So there are 2 things and the quality of 2 things is compared by using the word it's simile. When we remove this like and say she is a rose, Now she herself become Rose. There are not, in this sentence there are not, we cannot see two things, that is Rose and she. See, she herself is Rose. There is only one thing, that is she, and she is herself Rose. Two things are not there in this sentence. So when we put the quality, or when we impose the quality of one thing over the quality of the other, and we make it one unit, then the poetic device, the figure of speech that we use is generally metaphor. For example, time is money. Now time is one thing, money is another thing. If we compare both the things, let's say time is like money or time is as money, then it's simile. But when we say time itself is money, time and money are not two things, it is one unit, it's metaphor. Life is one thing, journey is another thing. If we compare it, life is like journey, then it's simile. But when we say the life itself is journey, when means quality of life and quality of journey intermixes and becomes one, it's metaphor. Simply, when you see that like and as is missing and some quality is, you can see that is imposed over one another, it's generally metaphor. For example, the world is a stage. The world is a stage. World is another thing, stage is another thing, but we say that world itself is a stage. The world is a stage. All the world is a stage. It's the famous line of Shakespeare. All the world is a stage. So what is a stage? World is a stage. The quality of stage and world is not compared. World itself becomes the stage. If we compare directly, it's metaphor. If we compare directly, it's metaphor. If we compare without using the word as and like, it's metaphor. So we have seen the differences between simile and metaphor. In simile, we can see words like as, like, similar to, resembles. These words or connectors are used. In metaphor, these words or connectors are not used. Without using these metaphors, using these connectors, directly we compare the quality of the two things and we impose the quality of one thing over the quality of another. We make it a single unit. We do not compare. If we compare girl and rose, it's simile. If we say that girl is rose, it's metaphor. If we compare the sun and face, or the shyness of the sun on face, it's simile. If we say that face itself is sun, face itself is moon, then that's metaphor. Next is alliteration. Alliteration is simply the repetition. Repetition of what? Alliteration is the repetition of initial sound, repetition of the beginning sound of the word, and that is generally the consonant sound. I repeat, alliteration is the repetition. Repetition at the beginning of the word, repetition at the starting of the word, and that repetition is generally the repetition of the sound of consonant. Generally, not always, but generally it is this repetition of the sound of consonant. For example, when we say sudden strangeness, sudden and strangeness, you can see that in both the words, first letter or the first sound is sir. So the repetition of consonant sound sir makes it alliteration. When we say Peter, paper, pick, peppers, the sound of pa or p is repeated at the initial stage of the word, it's alliteration. When we say wild winds whisper, wa, sound of wa, or the sound of w is repeated. So when there is repetition of sound at the initial or beginning stage of the letter of the word, and that too is generally the sound of consonant, if we say that the poetic device, the figure of speech, is alliteration. For example, cool, calm, cat, the sound of ka is repeated. For example, many men make mistake, many men make mistake, the sound of m or the sound of ma is repeated. When the sound is repeated, it's alliteration. The conditions are, it should be initial sound and it should be the sound of consonant. It should be at the beginning or initial stage of the word. If the entire word is repeated, then that is not alliteration, that is repetition. I repeat, if the entire word is repeated, instead of repetition of the initial sound, if the entire word is repeated, it's repetition. If we say no, 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 if we say don't, 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 then that's repetition. When we say wild winds whistle, sound of wa is repeated. When the initial sound is repeated, it's alliteration. If the entire word is repeated, it's repetition. It's not alliteration. So alliteration is a part of repetition. Next is repetition. when the entire word is repeated, when the entire phrase is repeated, when the entire emotion is what we were going to do is, let's say we use the word no or we use the word run. We are going to repeat that word to emphasize our concept, to emphasize our meaning, to convey our meaning with the emphasis, to pressurize over the meaning. We do repeat the words multiple times or a number of times, or more than at least more than twice, or at least twice. We repeat the word at least twice. Then that's repetition. Repetition of whole word, repetition of whole phrases. For example, no, no, no. Now let's say our poetic line says no, 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 and then it's underlined or it's asked what is the type of speech or figure of speech used in that particular line. Answer is repetition, because the whole word is repeated. When the whole word is repeated, it's repetition. Run, run, run. Whole word, run, run, run. Whole word is repeated, it's repetition. Never, never give up. Whole word never is repeated, repetition. Smile and smile again. Whole word, smile and smile. Whole word. Whole word, smile is repeated, it's repetition. Though alliteration is also there in it. Alliteration is also there in it. Why? Because the sound of, let's say smile and smile again. The sound of sa is at the beginning of the word. It's there. Alliteration is also there. But when the whole word is repeated, we have to go with the option of repetition, not with the alliteration. When the initial sound is repeated, we will take alliteration. When the entire word is repeated, we will take repetition. Next is anaphora. Anaphora is also a type of repetition. Repetition of what? Let's say you have the poetic line para where 2-3 lines are repeated, okay? 4 lines are given. 4 lines are given, and when you read those 4 lines, it's like we will do, we will practice, we will succeed. So when the whole word or phrase at the beginning is repeated, I repeat, when the whole word or phrase is repeated at the beginning of the sentence, it's anaphora. Where is it repeated? At the beginning. What is repeated? The whole word is repeated or the whole phrase is repeated. Then it's anaphora. For example, I have a dream, I have a hope, I have a vision. Now, which poetic device or figure of speech is used in this particular line? Answer is anaphora. Why? Because the whole word is repeated, the whole phrase is repeated, and that repetition is at the beginning of the sentence. For example, never give up, never lose up, never stop trying. The word never is repeated at the beginning of the sentence. So when the whole word, when the whole phrase is repeated at the beginning of the sentence, it's anaphora. For example, let's learn, let's think, let's create. This let's is repeated, and at the beginning of the sentence this repetition is there. It's anaphora. No more fear, no more silence, no more injustice. I want freedom, I want justice, I want equality. When the word or phrase is repeated at the beginning of the sentence, and that too whole phrase or whole word, it's it's always anaphora. Next is personification. What is personification? See, we as human, we as person have certain qualities. We do cry, we do laugh, we do eat, we do run. There are some qualities that is there in person. When these qualities of living being, when these qualities of person is imparted in any non-living being, then the poetic device or figure of speech that is used there is personification. For example, when you say that sun is smiling, when you say the moon is crying, it's not possible. Moon cannot cry, sun cannot smile. But when we say moon is crying or sun is smiling, it's personification. When we say tree is moving, when we say trees are sprinting, how can trees sprint? How can trees run? Trees can't. But when we say trees are sprinting, it's personification of the tree. जब हम निर्जीव वस्तु को सजीव बना दें, वहाँ personification या हिंदी में कहें तो मानवीयकरण अलंकार होता है. For example, the wind whispered through the trees. How can wind whisper? Wind, the running air is wind. How can wind whisper? Wind कैसे फुसफुसा सकती है? Wind कैसे आपके कान में आके कुछ बोल सकती है? लेकिन wind को बोलता हुआ बताया गया, तो wind को अंदर बोलने वाली human की quality डाल दी गई. That's personification. When we say the sun smiled at us, how can sun smile at us? But when we say this non-living aspect, non-living element is smiling, is showing the quality of the person, is showing the quality of a human, it's personification. When we say the flowers danced in the breeze, flowers are not human. They should not dance, but they are dancing, which means flowers are having the quality of the person, then it's personification. जब हम किसी निर्जीव वस्तु को सजीव के रूप में दिखाएं तो वहां पर्सोनिफिकेशन या मानवीयकरण अलंकार होता है. नेक्स्ट इज हाइपरबोल. व्हेन वी एग्जैगरेट द थिंग्स, जब आप बहुत लंबी लंबी फेंकते हैं वहां होता है हाइपरबोल, विच इज नॉट पॉसिबल. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, लेट्स से टीचर ने 2-3 बार बोला और फिर बोला कितनी बार बताऊं तुमको, 1000 बार समझाया है. व्हेन वी रिपीट दिस सेंटेंस इन इंग्लिश, we say I have told you a million times. I have told you a million times. क्या हम million times, क्या हम 10 लाख बार बोल सकते हैं? No, but we say I have told you a million times. This is exaggeration. जब हम बात को बहुत बढ़ा चढ़ा दें, it's hyperbole. She cried a river. वो इतना रोई कि एक नदी बना दी. She cried a river. Is it possible? Can she cry like in that much amount of water to make it a river? No, it's exaggeration. Exaggeration, when we exaggerate the thing, जब हम बात को बहुत बड़ा चढ़ा कर बोले, hyperbole होता है. For example, this bag weighs a ton. This bag weighs a ton. क्या इस बैग में 1 टन आ सकता है वजन? No, but this the exaggeration of thing. This bag weighs a ton. Hyperbole. I have been waiting forever. क्या हमेशा के लिए वेट किया जा सकता है? No, exaggeration. So when we try to exaggerate the things for humor, let's say for to put emphasis on something, to present our emotions, to give a dramatic effect, to do role play, then generally we use hyperbole. Hyperbole is used for exaggeration. बात को बहुत बड़ा चढ़ा कर बोलने के लिए hyperbole का यूज किया जाता है. He runs faster than the wind. Can anybody run faster than wind? No. Exaggeration of thing, hyperbole. Next is oxymoron. Simple, विरोधाभासी. जब दो opposite चीजें बिल्कुल साथ साथ रख दी जाएं, वहां oxymoron होता है. I repeat, when two contradictory things, two opposite things are placed together, are placed at very near position, then the poetic device or the figure of speech that is used is generally oxymoron. दो contradictory thing क्या हो सकती हैं? For example, साइलेंस एंड डेफनिंग. डेफनिंग शोर, बहुत तेज शोर मचाने वाला जो आपको बहरा कर दे, और साइलेंस शांति, दोनों को साथ में पोम में रख दिया गया. डेफनिंग साइलेंस, डेफनिंग साइलेंस, बहरा करने वाला शांति. पॉसिबल है? नो. व्हेन टू ऑपोजिट थिंग्स, टू कॉन्ट्राडिक्टरी थिंग्स आर प्लेस्ड टुगेदर, देन द पोएटिक डिवाइस इज ऑक्सीमोरोन. फॉर एग्जांपल, बिटर स्वीट. If it is bitter, it can't be sweet. If it is sweet, it can't be bitter. But bitter sweet is placed together. Two opposite things, two contradictory things are placed together in a sentence. It's oxymoron. Living dead. If it is living, it can't be dead. If it is dead, it can't be living. But two opposite things or contradictory things are placed together. The poetic device is oxymoron. For example, open secret. Secret can't be open. If it is open, it can't be secret. But this open and secret is placed together. It is possible. Poet has the freedom to do these kind of experiments while composing the poem. So they can use two opposite things, two contradictory things together. If they use two contradictory words together, then the poetic device, the figure of speech that they use is always oxymoron. Sweet sorrow. If it is sorrow, it can't be sweet. If it is sweet, it can't be sorrow. अगर कुछ अच्छा है, आनंदमयी है, तो वो दुख नहीं दे सकता, और दुख दे रहा है तो वो आनंदमयी नहीं हो सकता. लेकिन स्वीट सॉरो, पोइट के लिए स्वीट और सॉरो साथ साथ हो सकता है. देन स्वीट एंड सॉरो. awful good. If it is awful, it can't be good. If it is good, it can't be awful. Awfully good. If awful and good is placed together in a poetic line, it's oxymoron. Original copy. If it is original, it can't be copy. If it is copy, it can't be original. But poet can use original copy. I repeat, when two contradictory things are placed together, when two opposite things are placed together, it's oxymoron. Onomatopoeia. Simple. If in your poetic line there is some word and that word imitates or mimic the sound of some animal or bird or something. I repeat, if sound of animal, sound of bird or sound of something is presented in an English word and that word itself is used as the sound, it's onomatopoeia. For example, when we say meow, meow is an English word, but meow is the sound of cat. When we say meow, it means it is an English word and it imitates or mimics the sound of cat. Tick tock, English word, and it imitates or mimics the sound of clock. Hiss, when you say hiss, the sound of snake. When you say buzz, sound of bee. So in your poetic line, if the word buzz, hiss, bang, tick tock, meow, woof, splash, boom, cuckoo, chirrup, if these words are there in your sentence in the poetic line, you can say that the figure of speech or poetic device is onomatopoeia. Simply, onomatopoeia is imitation of sound. Assonance. What is assonance? Repetition of vowel sounds. If the vowel sounds are repeated, it's assonance. The rain in Spain stays mainly in the plain. The rain in Spain stays mainly in the plain. The sound of rain, in, Spain, stay, may, play. You can see that the sound, this vowel sound is repeated. When the vowel sound is repeated, it's assonance. Vowel sound, repetition of vowel sound, assonance. Repetition of consonant sound, consonance. If the consonant sound is repeated anywhere at the sentence, maybe at the beginning, maybe at the middle, maybe at the end, it's consonance. Black, rick, sound of caw, which is a consonant. Fish, wash, sound of shaw, which is a consonant. Lamp, jump. When a consonant sound is repeated, it's consonance. Now, rhyme. What is rhyme? Rhyme is the repetition or correspondence of similar sounds. Repetition of similar sounds, and that too at the ending line or words. At the end of the word or at the end of the poetic line. I repeat, if there is repetition of similar sounds, if there is repetition of similar sound at the end of word, if there is repetition of similar sound at the end of poetic line, we say that there is a rhyming scheme, and that rhyming scheme itself is asked in the CTET questions. You will be asked, identify the rhyming scheme. We do generally represent the rhyming scheme as AABB or ABAB or ABBAA. In this way, we represent the rhyming sounds or rhyming scheme. For example, let's say this is the poem that is asked in our that is given in our exam. The sun is shining in the sky, the clouds are floating gently by, the birds are singing on the tree, the chirrup so happily you see. The chirrup so happily you see. So you can see sky and by. Repetition of similar sound at the end of poetic lines. Then tree, see. Repetition of similar sound at the end of poetic line. Now when you say sky and by, we can represent it with A and A. Why? Because both are similar. When we pronounce sky, when we pronounce by, similar sounds are repeating. Due to that similarity, we will give it symbol of A. Again, we'll move to the next word, tree, C. Let's say after C we see B. Then tree, C, B, we can represent it with B. Let's say after tree, C, B, there is another word, light, fight, right. We will mark it at C. The rhyming scheme will become A, A, B, B, C, C. Or for example, free, glee, bright, delight. You can say, this is wrong, don't focus here. Bright and delight, they are same. So bright is B, delight is B, free is A, glee is A. So the rhyming scheme will become as A, A, B, B. Next is apostrophe. What is apostrophe? When you address something who cannot communicate with you back. Let's say somebody is dead and you are communicating with that person. If the person is dead, how can you communicate? If somebody is absent, how can you communicate? If there is something which is absent, which is dead, or even which is imaginary, which is not present, which is abstract. So when you talk with abstract things, when you talk with non-human things, when you talk with dead person, when you talk with someone who is not present, who cannot answer, then that poetic device or figure of speech will be apostrophe. For example, oh death, where is your sting? So you are talking with death. Can you talk with death? It's not possible. Death is inhumane thing. That is not, death is not living, but you talk with death directly. You are talking with death directly. That's apostrophe. For example, oh moon, guide me tonight. Can the moon come and guide you? Not possible. Can the moon come and communicate with you? Not possible. But you are talking with an inhuman thing. When you talk directly with an inhuman thing, non-human thing, when you talk directly with something which is absent, when you talk directly with something which is dead, then the poetic device or figure of speech is apostrophe. So when I talk directly to the sun, when I talk directly to the moon, when I talk directly to the life, when I talk directly to the freedom, equality, sympathy, empathy, justice, when I talk directly to my brain, when I talk directly to my sleep, then the poetic device or figure of speech is apostrophe. When, for example, freedom, I will always fight for you. How can you fight for the freedom? Is the freedom a living person? No. But you are talking directly to the freedom. Freedom, I will fight for you. When you are talking directly to the nature, oh nature, teach me your secret. How can nature teach you their secret? But when you say, oh nature, teach me your secrets, then the poetic device is apostrophe. Now we need to take care of it, that when we say that poetic device or figure of speech is apostrophe, then it can generally coincide or it can generally be part of personification as well. When you talk with nature, nature is personified. When you talk with freedom, freedom is the abstract concept which is personified. When you talk with your sleepness, that sleep is personified. Because you are talking, it means you are giving the quality of the human into that abstract concept. So generally this personification and apostrophe goes together, but when you see, let's say in your option you can see that apostrophe is also given, personification is also given, then what to do? We have to see whether in the question we are talking directly to the non-human thing, we are talking directly to the abstract concept, we are talking directly to something who is absent. If yes, apostrophe, otherwise it will be personification. Irony. When two contradictory things are happening together, it's ironical. When two opposite things happen together, it's ironical. For example, a fire station burns down. How can a fire station burn down? The duty of fire station is to extinguish the fire. But fire station itself is burning, it's ironical. It's totally, completely opposite statement. Okay. For example, a traffic policeman gets a speeding ticket. How can a traffic policeman get a ticket, a challan for overspeeding? Ironical things. For example, a swimming instructor cannot swim. If he is a swimming instructor, how can't he swim? He should learn, he should know how to swim, then only he can become the swimming instructor. But in a poetic line it says, a swimming instructor can't swim. A doctor can't treat. How can a doctor can't treat? If he can't treat, how can he become doctor? So if there are two things which is opposite to each other, it's ironical. For example, a marriage counselor is responsible for the marriage of everybody. If the poetic line says a marriage counselor gets divorced, how can marriage counselor get divorced? His duty is to get everybody married. So a marriage counselor gets divorced means ironical statement. Two opposite statements, two opposite things are placed together. We can say there irony is there. Irony can be based on situation, irony can be based on verbal situation, irony can be based on dramatical things. Pun. What is pun? Pun is the play with words. When we combine multiple meaning with a single word, or when we use the word so that it is ambiguous in itself. What does it mean to be ambiguous in itself? Ambiguous in itself means we are using a word which can be interpreted in the multiple ways. We are using a word from which multiple meanings can be derived. If we are using a word, or simply we can say that we are using a word in the poetic line so that it can be deciphered out as a double meaning word, then that is playing with the word, and the poetic device, the figure of speech used in the particular sentence or poetic line is pun. I repeat, जब हम किसी वर्ड को ऐसे यूज करते हैं कि उससे दो मीनिंग निकल जाए, दो से ज्यादा मीनिंग निकल जाए, या हिंदी में कहें तो श्लेष अलंकार, तो वहां पर पोएटिक डिवाइस इंग्लिश में होता है पन. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, a bicycle can't stand on its own. A bicycle can't stand on its own because it is too tired. Instead of writing too tired, we have written too tired, and this too tired is giving meaning of too tired. दो चक्के हैं और बहुत थका हुआ है, दोनों ही मीनिंग, सुनने वाला इससे दो मीनिंग निकाल सकता है, डबल मीनिंग है इसमें हिडन है. दैट इज either it is too tired, it has two tires, or it is too tired means it is tired, exhausted, it does not have energy at all. For example, the fisherman was very good at his job because he knew how to work with right angle. Now this right angle means the angle of catching the fish and the right angle of the mathematics. So when we use a word in a way, it can be deciphered with multiple meanings. When we use a word in a way, it can have double meaning. When we use a word in a way to make our sentence humorous, to make our sentence funny, to sound with multiple meanings, then that art of playing with the words, that poetic device or figure of speech we use, we can say is pun. So pun gives us fun. One word have double meaning or multiple meaning is pun. Imagery. When let's say you are reading the line of the poem, or you are reciting the line of the poem, the moment you read the line of the poem or recite the line of the poem, you get the image, that mental image. If the poetic line is having the capability or quality to generate a mental image or the mental symbol, the poetic device or figure of speech that is used in that poetic line is imagery. What is imagery? Imagery is the art of using the language in a way to create a mental image in the in the mental stage of the listener or the reader or to the audience. If the audience is listening to a poem recited by the poet and is able to imagine the things, that line has imagery. हिंदी में बोलते हैं बिंबात्मकता. For example, golden sunlight covered the field. Golden sunlight covered the field. When you listen this, golden sunlight covered the field. Let's say you are reading a poem of multiple lines, and the first line says golden sunlight. Are you able to imagine golden sunlight spreading in the park, spreading in the field? If yes, if you are able to imagine, then this line has imagery as the poetic device or the figure of speech. Again, this imagination or this imagery can be visual imagery, auditory imagery, olfactory imagery, gustatory imagery, and tactile imagery. When you touch something and get and able to imagine, it's tactile. If you are able to taste, let's say the poem is talking about something that you can imagine the taste of that particular object, that gustatory imagery. If you are able to get the fragrance out of that, if you are able to read the poem and smell out, it's olfactory imagery. If you are able to hear it, let's say the poem is talking about some mantras, some chanting, and you are able to hear to it, it's auditory imagery. And if the poet is reading out something and you are able to imagine, let's say an elementary school classroom in a slum, this poem is being read or presented or recited in front of you, and you are able to imagine that particular situation of the elementary classroom in the slum, it's visual imagery. So imagery is a poetic device, a figure of speech, where if you read the line, if you hear the line, you are able to imagine the thing. Let's quickly recap and revise the things that we have learnt today, and then we'll move to the practice questions. Let's revise it quickly. Okay. What is repetition? Repetition is the repetition of words simply. If in the poetic line, word is repeated, smile and smile, word is repeated, it's repetition. Next, anaphora. If repetition of word is at the beginning of the sentence, is at the starting of the sentence, it's anaphora. Smile, smile, smile. The smile word is repeated. What is the position of repetition? Beginning of the sentence. It's anaphora. What is alliteration? Alliteration is a repetition of sound, not the word. While, win, whisper. The sound of wa or w is repeated. It's alliteration. He fights like a lion. When you see like or as and the comparison of the quality, always it's simile. He is a lion. Now he becomes lion. Lion and he are not two different things. It becomes one. He is a lion. He is brave. He is brave as lion, then it's simile. If he is brave, he himself is lion, it's metaphor. Personification, when non-human things are, let's say when non-human things are presented in a way where you can see the quality of the person, when you see the quality of the human, it's personification or personified. For example, the wind whispered through the trees. How can wind whisper through the tree? क्या हवा ट्री के कान में जाके कुछ बोल सकती है? नो, दैट इज पर्सोनिफिकेशन, मानवीयकरण. Hyperbole, when you exaggerate the things a lot. I have told you million times, you are not doing this. Anybody cannot tell million times. Exaggeration, अतिशयोक्ति, बात को बहुत बढ़ा चढ़ाकर बोलना, hyperbole. Oxymoron, when two opposite words are placed together. Two opposite words are placed together, it's oxymoron. Deafening silence, if it is silent it can't be deafening, if it is deafening it can't be silent. When two opposite words are placed together, it's oxymoron. Onomatopoeia is simply the sounds, imitation of the sound. Sound of animal, sound of bird, sound of insect, if it is there, it's onomatopoeia. Pun, double meaning. When we use one word, in a way it can be deciphered out, in a way it can have multiple meanings, it's pun. Irony, the expectation and situation are different. When opposite statements are given together, a fire station catches fire, it should not catch. If it catches fire, it should not be fire station. If it is fire station, it should not catch fire. If it is catching fire, it can't be said as fire station. When two opposite things are there, it's irony. Imagery, if you are able to read or listen to the line and able to generate the mental image, the poetic device is imagery. If you are able to imagine, poetic device or the figure of speech is imagery. Apostrophe, when you talk with non-living thing, when you talk directly with non-human thing, when you talk directly to the tree, when you talk directly to the sun, moon, mountain, river, it's apostrophe. Embellishment, sentence continues to the next line. Next, comparison. We have simile and metaphor. If you can see like and as, it's simile. If comparison is there and like and as is missing, it's metaphor. Alliteration is the repetition of initial consonant sound. Assonance is the repetition of vowel sounds. Consonance is the repetition of consonant sound. Repetition is the repetition of word, repetition of phrase, repetition of word or phrase. If that repetition is at the beginning of the sentence, then that's anaphora. Let's practice our learning with some of the previous year questions of CTET quickly. Okay. The wind roared through the trees like a hungry beast. Now identify the poetic device. I repeat, the wind roared through the trees like a hungry beast. The moment you see like or the moment you see as, it's simile. Life is a journey with many twists and turns. Life is compared with journey, but this comparison is without as, without like. If this comparison is with as, with like, it becomes simile. When the comparison is done without using the word as or like, it's always metaphor. You can say simile and metaphor. The stars danced playfully in the moonlight sky. The stars danced playfully in the moonlight sky. Which figure of speech is used here? Can the star dance? No. If the non-living thing is presented as the living thing, if the non-living thing are doing some act that a living thing should do, for example dance, for example cry, for example smile. Now if this smile, cry, dance, run is done by the non-living thing, the answer is always personification. He heard the buzz. When you see a particular word, that is the sound of a bird, that is the sound of an animal, answer is always onomatopoeia. She was as gentle as a dove. When you see as and as, when your comparison is there by using the word as and like, it's simile. Let's see one by one. Stars danced, personification. Buzz sound is onomatopoeia. as gentle, simile. Death lays his icy hand on the kings. Death is non-living thing. How can death put hand on the king? Not possible. If the non-living thing is presented as living, is personification. Parting is such sweet sorrow. Parting is such sweet sorrow. If it is sweet, it can't be sorrow. If it is sorrow, it can't be sweet. अगर दुख है तो वो सुख नहीं हो सकता, सुख है तो वो दुख नहीं हो सकता, दोनों साथ में है तो विरोधाभासी चीज, दो ऑपोजिट चीजें बिल्कुल साथ साथ प्लेस कर दी जाए तो ऑक्सीमोरॉन. So this is personification. Death cannot have hand, and this is oxymoron. What is oxymoron? When two opposite words are placed together, it's oxymoron. For example, bitter sweet, oxymoron. The leaves whisper. How can leaves whisper? Leaves are the non-living things. How can they speak? How can they whisper? Not possible. Personification. He is as brave as a lion. When the comparison is there by using the word like or as, it's always simile. Peter Piper picked a pack of pickled peppers. When the sound of consonant is repeated at the beginning of the word, at the initial stage of the word, at the initial place of the word, it's alliteration. Personification, simile because of as, and Peter Piper picked, alliteration. Why? Because the sound of P or sound of P at the beginning, at the initial stage is repeated. The sea roared with anger during the storm. How can the sea, which is a non-living thing, roar? Is it possible? How can the sea, which is a non-living thing, can have anger? It's not possible. If sea is having anger, if sea is roaring, it's personification. The camel is the ship of desert. Camel itself is the ship of desert, or camel is like the ship of the desert. If the camel is like the ship of the desert, it should be simile. But if camel itself becomes the ship of the desert, it's metaphor. So the like and as word is missing, it's metaphor. I have told you 1,000,000 times. How can you tell me 1,000,000 times? Exaggeration of the thing, hyperbole. Sea roaring, personification. Camel is the ship of the desert, metaphor. I have told you million times. I'm sorry, I think it's not working. Just give me a minute. Okay. Her eyes were like stars, shining bright. If like or as is there, it's simile. If this like or as is missing or omitted from this sentence, then that becomes metaphor. Comparison with like and as, simile. Comparison without using that like and as, metaphor. Here like is there, so it's simile. There was a deafening silence. How can a silence be deafening? If it is deafening, how can there be silence in the room? Deafening silence, बहरा कर देने वाला शोर नहीं हो सकता. दोनों चीजें साथ में हैं. It means opposite words are used together. I repeat. Again, it's not working. Please wait. Okay. Yeah. Simile and oxymoron. Oh captain, my captain, our fearful trip is done. Which poetic device is used in addressing the captain? See, sometimes in CTET you will find some very famous poems, and if it is very famous poem, it is let's say that the person who is setting examiner, the examiner is having the perspective that you must be aware of that poem. If you read this line, oh captain, my captain, it is talking about a captain who is dead. And if the captain is dead, how can you talk? If you are talking with a dead person, apostrophe. She sells seashells at by the shore. Sound of so is repeating at the beginning or initial stage or initial position of the word. It's alliteration. Apostrophe, talking with the non-living thing. Repetition of same sounds, alliteration. Repetition of same sounds, repetition of consonant sounds at the beginning, alliteration. The fire station burned down yesterday. If it is fire station, it should not burn down. If it is burned down, it should not be fire station. Ironical statement, irony. The camera loves her smile. If it is camera, it's non-living. If it is non-loving, it should not love. If it is loving, it means the poet has used the poetic device, which is personification. Fire station burned down, irony. Camera is talking, personification. The sizzle, when we see the word which itself is a sound of a bird, of an animal, of insect, then it's onomatopoeia. Okay. He is a lion in the battle. He himself is the lion. He is not compared to the lion. He himself is the lion. When he himself is a lion, when we compare the quality by without using like or as, it's metaphor. The snow is a white blanket. Snow itself is a white blanket. Snow is compared with the white blanket without using as or like. When we compare the things without using as or like, it's metaphor. I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. If you are hungry, can you eat a horse? Not possible. Exaggeration of the thing. When you exaggerate a lot, it's hyperbole. Hyperbole, metaphor. Click, clack. Whenever there is a word which itself is a sound of something, this click, clack, tip, tap, it's the sound of clock. Then when the sound itself is used as the poetic device, it onomatopoeia. Betty Botter bought some butter. At the initial letter, there is a repetition of sound which is B or ba, which itself is a consonant. When there is repetition of sound, that is the sound of consonant that is repeated at the beginning of the sentence or beginning of the word, it's alliteration. Thank you so much. I hope we are able to understand the poetic device of the figure of speech, and we have practiced some previous year questions as well. Thank you. Thank you.